أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Jazakallah khair for everyone for coming in for this evening's talk. It's indeed a pleasure to introduce my friend and brother Dr. Muhammad Arif. He's a consultant in Occupational Medicine. As well, he's a force medical advisor for Northumbria Police. So brother Dr. Arif has an enormous wealth of information to share with us this evening in the field of how to manage in terms of coping a traumatic event like what we had on the day of Eid. So he has been involved with TRIM program, which is basically trauma-related incident management. So he would be able to share how he manages with his team and how best we could cope with the traumatic events. Just before I make Dr. Arif to be in charge of the podium, I just want to give a kind of a heads up. I would like to invite Brother Abdul Basit, Imam Abdul Basit, to give us an update on our guests who are still admitted in the hospital. That's okay.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala mawala ma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me that I visit those brothers who are in the hospital very regularly. Today also I visited and I asked their permission to give the updates as well, alhamdulillah. So among all 6 brothers, there are 2 still in the hospital. One is Ustad Abdullah and another is the child who was very severely injured at that day. Alhamdulillah, Ustad Abdullah, his therapy is getting very good and he's able to move and walk a little bit with the help of his stick. And he conveyed his salam to all of you, and he's really happy to receive the response and support from the community. And he especially conveyed his salam and du'as. He said he's making dua to all of you and we should make dua for him, inshallah. So this is Ustad Abdullah, and they have told him that in a week or so they are going to send him home, inshallah. So this is good news, alhamdulillah. And then I went to the child as well. I think today was the first day he started eating food. So alhamdulillah, so I met him and his mind is working very good. And he had his scan as well, and they said everything's performing very well, alhamdulillah. And the good news is he walked few steps today as well, alhamdulillah. So this is the first walk after that, alhamdulillah. So his mother has thanked all of you and asked for more du'as. So this is few updates. And this child, believe me, he is a child of miracles, alhamdulillah. It is the dua, as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah. Dua is worship. And then he said ad-du'a mukhul ibadah. It is the essence of the worship. And then he said ad-du'a huwa silah al-mu'min. Dua is the weapon of the believer. Subhanallah. And when we make dua for someone in their absence, that dua has lot of importance. Excuse me. Lot of importance and lot of position in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we keep making dua inshallah for him, and jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair for the update. That's a very positive news. On that positive note, we're just going to ask Dr. Arif to take the podium. Before we say that, I just want to thank Dr. Arif as well as Dr. Samir, who basically put up this event. And last but not least, our mosque, the Imam and all the brothers who are involved with it, for giving the space for this beautiful event which is about to begin. Dr. Arif.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As said, I would like to thank the members of the Newcastle Central Mosque for giving me the platform to speak today about this very sensitive topic. I'd also like to thank Brother Samir and Brother Umar for encouraging me and allowing me to give this talk today. So Jazakallah. We witnessed a very difficult event on Eid Day. And I'm sure we are all affected deeply by what happened and what we saw. Now, everybody was, have been affected in different ways depending on how closely involved they were with the incident. And my first reaction was to see what the volunteers were doing, and I saw, Brother Umar and Brother Samir very closely involved in trying to help and provide immediate life support to the people who were quite badly injured. And from my experience of working with Northumbria Police and before with Newcastle Hospitals and working with emergency care services, and I think it's just one of those things that happens, my professional mind comes in and I start observing the people who are working over there and trying to help them, and my thought by default goes to ask them or think about what they are going through while they're trying to save and help other people. And at the end of the day, what I did was I texted Brother Umar and Brother Samir, and I called him and I asked them, how are you feeling? Because we tend to forget that the volunteers who have tried to help people can also be equally affected as much as the people who are affected, relatives and other close bystanders as well. And I remember Dr. Umar telling me that day that he felt numb and shocked. And I gave him a talk and I counseled him and told him that it is perfectly normal emotion and experience to go through. And it was at that point, and when I spoke to Brother Samir, that they both suggested that I give a similar talk that I did for them to the wider, brothers in the mosque, and also people who may have volunteered that day as well. So I decided, I think that's a good idea, and I decided to prepare this talk. So what I would like to do is to start by asking you, what do you think is a traumatic event?
So basically, it's an emotional response to any negative events. It's called as trauma.
Yeah. So, to the general public, if you're on the street, what do you think is a traumatic event? So it could be a car accident, it could be train accident, it could be physical assault. So you're a victim of a robbery, or you're walking in the street and somebody assaults you, and we're seeing that quite often as well in this day and age because of all the negative reaction and negative perception towards Islam. So that is also a traumatic event. So anything that is outside what happens in our day-to-day living is what a traumatic event is. And it affects us quite badly. Everybody in different ways. Earthquakes, major disasters, they are also classed as traumatic events. So why is it important to understand and know how to cope with a traumatic event? It affects people, individuals, their families, and it can have deep, long-lasting effects if people don't know how to understand how to cope and understand what they're going through. People tend to underestimate the impact of such events both on themselves and on their families, even if you've only observed or witnessed the event. Now, I was there, but I was slightly far away, and my wife and daughter were quite close to where the event actually happened. They were about 20 feet in front. And I saw firsthand how my daughter was and how affected she was. And I can tell you that I started trembling there, and it is a perfectly normal reaction to have. It then changes depending on the circumstances and what happens after that, and depending whether our family are immediately affected or not. We then start thinking about the worst case. What if it was me or my family who were there, who were injured? And it's a perfectly normal thought to have. We feel vulnerable and helpless, and that depends. on what the situation is. So if somebody's been assaulted or something similar happened in the Finsbury Park incident, for instance, we could think, me or my family could be next. So what feelings, most of us were there in the Eid prayers that day. So Imam Sahib, I would like to ask you first, what was your first reaction when it happened? What was your first emotion? Were you sort of frozen? Were you scared?
I was kind of scared, but I just want to control everybody's emotions, so something like before any other reaction starts.
Yeah.
That was my main priority.
Yeah.
That it happened, but how I have to calm people down from.
Sure.
And I was, for a second, as everybody was saying, oh, it's attack. So that was my, like, who is that person if he has attacked? So what people are going to do to him? So that sort of.
Absolutely. So we feel shocked, we're stunned, we feel dazed, or as Brother Umar said, you feel numb. You feel like your body is not within you, you feel detached. You're cut off from your feelings and from what is going around you, and sometimes we just freeze. I remember when that happened, I wasn't sure how to react, and I just sort of froze for a few seconds. And even as medical professionals, it can happen to us sometimes. We practice this day, every year we have to practice how we respond to emergencies. But at that point, our emotions just come and we just freeze, and we just can't think clearly. You ask yourself, Ya Allah, did this really happen? I cannot believe it. Is it really happening? And I think a lot of us felt that emotion that day as well, because it is something that we have never experienced. Sometimes people might see you standing there and not reacting, whereas you know that you're frozen with fear, but other people think you actually don't care. Why is he standing there? Why is he not reacting? Why is he not rushing? And that can happen. That perception of people can sometimes come as well. Your feeling of shock and denial about what has happened, it just then gradually fades. And that's because of the chemical in our body. Our chemical tends to just cause that feeling of shock and hyperactive feeling. And it can take sometimes a few hours or sometimes even a few days, depending on how badly we were or how closely we were involved with that incident. And once the shock and denial settles, then other thoughts or feelings then gradually take over. So I would like to ask the people here in the mosque, the brothers in the mosque here, a day or two after, how did you feel? Anyone?
I can say that how I felt. The next morning I felt a bit of jitteriness. There's a lot of intrusive, like flashbulb memories came up that next
Flashbacks.
morning. Yeah. So those came up, and then it was a bit jittery. So I was still having an activated system. It was a arousal.
You're hyper alert. Yeah, you're sort of tensed. You
Yes.
feel tense. Your body tightens up. You're thinking about that event that comes like a replay in your mind. You keep thinking about, and it depends on how much of the event you witnessed as well. Now, unfortunately, we see clippings on social media, and sometimes we see that, and if you see the news, that sort of replay effect can be even more because we see it on social media, on Twitter or Facebook, in the news channels, and that tends to make it even more amplified. So you wake up in the morning, you're brushing your teeth, you're thinking about what happened. You're starting to eat your food, you're thinking about what happened, and the same thing just comes in front of your mind. And it's very difficult to shake it off, first thing, and you feel very confused. You feel very upset about why you're feeling that way. And it is a perfectly normal feeling to have. So we should not feel worried even if after a few days we feel like we feel. So you feel a mixture of emotions. As Brother Umar said, could it happen again? Could it be me next time? You feel helpless. You feel scared, overwhelmed. Sometimes people even start crying as well. You feel angry about what happened and who did it. It depends on what type of incident it is. In this situation, we know it was an accident and it was an unfortunate accident, whereas if it was a Finsbury Park incident, you can sometimes feel angry and very upset about it. You feel guilty that nothing has happened to you and others may have survived or unfortunately passed away. You feel embarrassed about your reaction at the time. So, as I said, sometimes we just freeze and we don't react as we should. And sometimes 2 or 3 days later we feel, you feel very sorry and embarrassed and ashamed about having reacted or not reacted properly. Even as medical professionals, I was there, I sort of froze. And I was, thinking, could I have done more? Could I have, gone a bit quicker, for instance? Feel sad if people are seriously injured. We all felt very devastated about what happened to the little boy and Mr. Ahmed, the teacher, who incidentally I only said salam about 5 minutes before the incident actually happened. You feel relieved as well. Alhamdulillah, Allah has been merciful that nothing has happened to us. So it's that confused emotion that you have. You feel it could have been me, but then you say, Alhamdulillah, it wasn't me. And you feel hopeful, again, depending on what the situation is. And if it's something like the Grenfell Tower or the Finsbury Park incident, you feel that, inshallah, Allah will protect us and, we'll make more dua and make sure that something like this does not happen to us again. So, what kind of symptoms of ill health do you need to look out for after the first few days? So you see poor sleep, you don't sleep well, you can get nightmares, dreams of the incident, you flashback. You see that, my daughter's telling me when we were driving today, and she just turned away when we crossed that Westgate College, because she just, that Westgate Sports Centre, because she didn't want to remember about what happened. You feel tired because you've not slept well. You don't focus well, so your concentration goes down and you're easily distracted. So you're thinking about something, so you might be making tea, but you might forget to put tea bag in or forget to put the sugar in, or just even simple things, your concentration starts getting affected. You forget things as well, so sometimes you might forget your keys and you just feel very, very tired. Everything you try and do, it feels more of an effort. So it feels like you're using more hard work physically and also in terms of using your brain to do things. You get headaches because you're trying to think hard. You don't feel hungry, you don't want to eat. Your heart starts beating faster because you're anxious, you're tensed. And sometimes people can get even body aches and pains because they're not sleeping and they're feeling very tense. So when they're tense, they keep tensing the muscles. So you get neck pain, you get back pain, you get arm pain because you're just holding yourself very, very tight. So should you be worried about how you feel, the symptoms that I've said, or anyone close to you feels? So you don't need to necessarily worry unless your symptoms last for many days. So give yourself time, and we all know about the importance of sabr, patience, and you need to give yourself time to allow those emotions and those feelings to go away. You pray and make dua for those who you have lost or who are very, very ill and you're seriously injured, and we make dua for them. Sometimes we might want to find out what happened because you want to face the reality of what happened. Again, it depends on the situation. So you might have turned your back, you don't know what happened, you just worried, you just heard voices and you don't know what happened. So sometimes just asking and talking to people can sometimes help. You can be involved with other survivors depending on how, like Imam is going, he's going and visiting the survivors and talking to them and encouraging them, For people who have survived, you can, have prayers, you attend prayers for them, and if there are people who have passed away, then you attend their janazah prayers, because when you pray for them, it makes you feel that Allah will look after them in the akhirah. And take some time for yourself, because at times you might just want to be on your own, or very close to just your immediate family, mother, father, sisters, brother, wife, children, and you just want to just stay away from the open public for some time, not too long. And sometimes it's good to talk about what happened with your immediate family in little bits. You might not want to say everything, but just talking a little bit by bit, can sometimes help, because it gets things off your chest. Because if you hold it inside and keep it in your mind, it's like that extra burden that weighs your mind down, and it can just break you slowly. So it's always good to just talk about it. And again, if you cry thinking about it, if you're very upset and cry, it's okay to cry. Crying is not a sign of weakness. I always tell people that, when I see police officers coming and talking to me and they're crying when they've seen something very upsetting, I tell them it's absolutely fine. Because when you cry, I tell them what I want is when you walk out of my consultation room, I want you to feel better. And sometimes crying is letting out that emotion, and it can help people feel better. So it's not a sign of weakness. Always try and stick to a routine. So even if you're starting to feel you're not sleeping well, you're feeling very tired, just try and stick to doing things that you normally do. Getting up for prayers, praying Fajr, making breakfast, trying to go to work, and just try and normalize life as much as possible, because that is very important. Because if you stop doing things, it'll make things worse. It's like a very vicious cycle. Regular eating and sleeping times, it's very, very important. So sometimes even if you don't try and sleep, if you can't sleep, it is important just go to bed at the set time. And avoid napping in the afternoon if you can't sleep well at night, because it just completely throws your body. Our body has a clock, and that clock rhythm has to be maintained. Because if that clock rhythm isn't maintained, then it makes us feel more tired. And we get other health problems as well if it becomes a long-term problem. Regular exercise, going out for walks, brisk walk is quite good, because it again helps get a lot of the pressure out of your system by improving the circulation and clearing the bad chemicals from the brain. And that can be quite good as well, because when we feel tensed and when we feel sad, we get bad chemicals that collect in the brain, and that can make us feel even worse and even more slow and low and tired as well. Prayer timings can help with the daily routine, because you can then sort of focus on praying, doing your things, breakfast, lunch, suhar, asr, and then sleep after your Isha prayer. So prayer timings can help with your daily routine. Do normal things. So, even if you don't feel like, just help your wife with the cooking, or, go help your father out in the shop, or go run errands, go to the shop, do supermarket shopping, and just try and normalize things. Even if you don't feel like going to work, depending on how unwell you feel, you don't want to stay off work too long, and you might want to just try and go back and work as part of that normal routine that you need as well. You must take care, especially if you're feeling very tired and you're very forgetful and distracted. Take care when you're cooking, driving, ironing, working, because you don't want to make mistakes that could cause problems. Yeah. So especially when you're cooking, you're just distracted, you're thinking, you have that flashback. You might leave the gas on, or you might burn yourself when you're cooking, so you have to be quite careful, because cooking, those things need good concentration and focus, even when you're driving as well. What should you not do? And this is important. There are only a few points, but those are, I think, very important points. Don't close up or bottle your feelings, because if you close up and don't talk to anyone, and if you just keep everything to yourself, it'll make you feel worse. That's why I said crying is good, or talking to people or family is quite good, because it'll just get things off your chest. This is an interesting statement, because I didn't think about it. This is what my daughter told me. I was doing this talk to my daughter yesterday, and I asked her what should we not do, and this is what she said: we have to be careful about making others feel worse by how we feel. It's amazing how children think in ways that we never think. And don't take on too much to do. So don't go the other extreme and be very hyperactive and do too much even when you feel a bit tired. Try and do and pace yourself and do what you think you can do. So don't do too little, don't do too much. Because some people tend to try and go the other extreme and say, you know what, I'm not weak, I'm strong, I need to do more and more things, more and more things. And sometimes that makes them feel even more tired and exhausted. And don't make any major changes to your life or make any major life decisions on things. So, for instance, we see people who are very, very upset, especially working in the police and all. They say, I cannot do this anymore, I'm going to resign. And we tell them, no, I think you're very upset. Don't take any decision. On nurses, they say, I cannot cope with this. I'm very, very upset. I saw the little child is very unwell. I cannot go to work. I can't do this. And they'll do a resignation and we tell them, no. And the manager, the head matron will tell them, no, don't do it. I think you're very upset. Just calm down, think, sabr, patience. You feel better, think about it. And then they'll say, yeah, okay, I feel better. I think I can do the job. And it is very similar in that emotion when we do things in our day-to-day living as well. And we should not make any major life decisions or changes as well. So just stick to what you're doing normally. I think, and that's the most important point. When do you need to seek medical help or see a GP? If you're still feeling unwell about 4 to 6 weeks after the incident, then it is a good time to think, should I see my GP or book an appointment to see my GP? If you're on your own, so you might have students here who are on their own and they have no one to share their feelings with, no one to talk to, they're keeping everything inside, and it just makes them feel worse because they can't get it out of their chest and talk to anyone about it. You're feeling very, very sad, scared, nervous. So like Brother Umar said, he's feeling very tensed and jittery. And for about a month and a half, if you're still feeling exactly the same, where even to the point you open the door and you cannot even step out without feeling trembling and scared, then you know that's not right. You have to seek advice from your GP. You feel extremely sad, you just close down, you just lie in your bed with a duvet over your head and you do not talk to anyone, you close the curtains and you're just living in darkness. That is another sign that you're starting to get very, very sad or depressed. And that is very important. You're having nightmares. Again, the flashbacks are just not stopping. You see the same thing. You see the car coming and hitting. You see the car coming and hitting. You see the car coming and hitting. You're waking up in sweats in the middle of the night. You're panting. Your heart is beating really fast. And you just feel extremely scared and tensed. You're getting very angry with close friends and family. And this is, I think, probably the most important thing, because depending on how people are affected, everybody reacts differently. And some people who are really badly affected, you might see that their behavior is changing. They're getting very irritable, very moody, they're very snappy. They start shouting at people. Children are coming and saying, and they say, go away from me, I don't want to talk to you. And that is a sign. And if it becomes more and more frequent, even after about a month or a month and a half, then you know that that is a problem. You're staying away from people, you're avoiding people. So, somebody who used to come regularly to the mosque has stopped coming to the mosque, for instance. That is a good thing. Or you see them outside, they're talking, and suddenly after the incident, we might sometimes not notice it, and sometimes people who are very close to such people might say, why is he not coming to the mosque? I haven't seen him for a few days. Is he all right? And sometimes that's very important to think about as well, not just about ourselves, but close family and friends as well. You're doing work and you're not working properly, and your work is suffering. You're making a lot of mistakes. Everybody's telling, are you all right? Because you're not doing your job properly, and that can be a good sign, and that can be a sign to look out for as well. Again, most importantly, people around you tell you, you know what, brother, I don't think you're well. You're not how you are supposed to be. Your family, your friends, they tell you, I think you need to see the GP. Are you all right? Because even a month down the lane, you're not well. Are you all right? You're not well. Please go and see a doctor. So sometimes we do not necessarily see what's happening to us, but other people can see us and they can see change. Our eyes, their bags under the eyes, we look very tired. Our shoulders are hunched, face is down, there's no expression in the face, or you're very angry, or you're very trembling, you're going outside, and you take a few steps outside the house and you're shaking, and you come back inside, and your family say, are you all right? Because that's not right. And because they say, you know what, I think it's not right, you need to see your GP. And we have to sometimes accept that. We might be in denial about it because we think, no, there's nothing wrong with me. But we don't necessarily see. Unless we see ourselves in a mirror, it's very difficult. Sometimes our family act as our mirror. They can see what's happening to us. Again, because of concentration, poor concentration, you have accidents, you're making too many mistakes, and you're feeling very tired. And you might think it's silly mistakes, but those silly mistakes, if they add up, can become something big in the future, and that's very important to think about. And sometimes people then, if they smoke, they start smoking too much, and they sort of change, if they've reduced so much and they're smoking too many cigarettes. So those are the medical side, and I thought I'm not a religious scholar by any means, but I thought I'd sort of give you a bit of context from a religious side, because sabr and patience is very important. And this quote is very, very relevant, I think, because it talks about the believer, and if something good happens to him, he's thankful for it, but then when something bad happens to him, he bears it with patience. And the importance of sabr in all this is very, very, very relevant, I think. And it may not end today, especially in terms of what is happening, similar to the Finsbury Park incident. We never know what's going to happen tomorrow, especially in the political context. We always think, could it be us tomorrow? And we have to be patient that if something bad happens, that we are able to bear it with patience. Again, this ayat is also again very, very relevant. I think it says, "We surely test you with something of fear and hunger and loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to those who are patient. When disaster strikes them, they say, indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to Him we will return." Again, Allah is always with those who are patient. Inna Allahu ma'as sabirin. I thought I'll touch upon a bit about resilience. So I thought I'll talk a little bit about resilience and positive thinking. So resilience is not the same as patience. Can anyone tell me what resilience means here? What do you mean by being resilient? It's about your capacity to recover quickly from difficult situations. It's about a measure of how tough you are, not just physically but also mentally. So when something bad happens to us, how quickly we can bounce back from it to what is normal. That is resilience. And I think a lot of work is now going into trying to tell people about how to remain resilient in difficult times. So you have physical resilience and mental resilience. So physical resilience is you twist your ankle, how fast, how quickly you can recover from that ankle injury and start running again. Or how quickly you are fractured and you run again. And mental resilience is something on similar lines. So when we feel low, the way I explain depression or anxiety is our mind fractures and our mind needs time to heal. In some people, depending on how they've experienced or how resilient they are, their mind heals quicker. And that's a simple explanation that I can give about what psychological or mental resilience is. The Arabic translation is al-muruna. That's what it means in Arabic. There are various ways of improving resilience, and if there's one thing that is really, really good at improving a person's resilience, it's exercise and trying to maintain a normal routine and trying to do regular exercise. It's a very, very good way of maintaining and improving your resilience. Because it feels like when you do exercise, when you've gone out for a run or a jog, you come back, you feel like you've achieved something. Maintaining focus by praying and making dua. And sometimes when you pray, with patience and having regular prayer and your faith and belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it helps us with our resilience as well, because we know that Allah is there for us and it helps us bounce back up to feel normal again. Again, an ayat that does not explain resilience completely, but it touches upon steadfastness, which is probably a part of being resilient. So, oh, who you believe, seek help through steadfastness in prayers. God is with those who steadfastly persevere. So you keep sticking to what you're doing, you're steadfast, your resilience will be better. Helping others makes you feel good about yourself. So if you feel a bit low and you want and talking to people, so in a way I'm talking to you today because it helps me feel positive that I'm doing something for the community, and it'll make you feel good about yourself. And I'm sure here the audience here have helped in different ways to those who have been affected. And sometimes doing something good and spreading that positive feeling to others can be quite helpful. So I would like to end the talk with this ayat, which is, don't fall into despair, don't lose heart, for you will be superior if you are true in faith. So if your iman is strong, then you know you're more superior physically, psychologically, especially psychologically, to bounce back from difficulties that we have faced. So I would like to now just hand over to Brother Umar, who will give you a bit of the services that are available to help to access, either through your GP or directly through the mental health trust. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Jazakallah khair. Thank you. That was very well done, and it was very good summarized. This is a topic on its own. It's an ocean on its own. Just to summarize and pitch it to the level where the layman or lay people could understand, non-medics could understand. That's a challenge on its own, and you did very well, alhamdulillah. So yeah, just to summarize what Dr. Arif said, like he very well listed how immediately one would feel while being a victim or witnessing a trauma. 2 is basically what one would feel after a few days, and when to seek help, and why it is important to seek help. So he has come through that, and you made a very good distinctions between patience and resilience. So that's very good done, and you supported it with the Quranic ayah as well. So Jazakallah khair. That was a very good effort, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and the family for this amazing effort, and may Allah bless us all to get some kind of knowledge to imply this in our life. Ameen. So just having said that, I have a few more slides just to say which service, how do we approach the service. So that would be it. Yeah. So these are the references which you made. So that's from the Royal College website as well. So if you have anything about the stress disorders related to trauma, then RC Psych is the nice website. That's the second one there. They have a very good downloadable booklets as well, so you could do that. Okay, so let's do this trick. Okay, so what do you see when you see all these 3 numbers? What is one thing you find out from it? Shout out. Second one is wrong. Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Good. Thank you. So there are more positives. One is wrong. There are more rights than the wrong. But our human mind or brain, it just picks up the wrong ones. That's the way human mind reacts. That's in a way, and the reason we put this up is basically to see how the traumatic memories work. All the good things just erases and the traumatic memory sticks in. If you have done everything goes well, and one small hinge happens, and that hinge goes into the brain, and people start making an issue out of it. So that's the way human mind reacts. This is normal. We shouldn't basically think, why do they feel this way? We need more sabr. That particular time, that's the case. And that's the way human brains react. So we should, as a ummah, as a community, we should understand that. And that helps a lot of human relations as well. Does it make sense? At that particular time, that's okay. But making an issue after some time, then that becomes a problem. I'll give you an example about a legend. Okay, whenever a trauma affects us, basically human brain goes through a kind of a process. which is in short is called as DABDA. D-A-B-D-A, DABDA. So initially, everybody goes through any clues what does first D stands for? Brother said in his talk. And A stands for? D-A. D is denial. He said, no, it's not possible. And Imam as well, he knows, everybody is saying it's terror attack. He said, no, it shouldn't be terror attack. Yeah, that's the emotion you went through. And you wanted to keep yourself well as well, so that your emotions don't impact on the others. Yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? So that's the denial phase. Everybody goes through it. Sometimes in seconds, minutes, sometimes in hours. Then the next one is the anger. A is for anger. Then B is for bargain or negotiation. You start negotiating, it can't be that. And you can self-negotiate or you negotiate with the agency. The next one is the second D is for depression or sadness. And the last A is for acceptance. So D-A-B-D-A. So the last one you start accepting, yes, that's the case. I'll give you an example. It's a very, very good example. We all know about Umar bin Khattab, the second caliph of Islam, and he's an amazing legend. His resilience, his patience is way beyond. There's no parallel anybody can make it with him. Yeah? But what did he do when he heard the news Prophet ﷺ is dead? He was extremely angry. He said, if anybody is going to say he's dead, I'm going to chop off your limbs. That's the level. He was in denial and he was in anger. Yeah? So he was in that state. So if that could happen to Umar radiallahu anhu, so who are we? So the immediate initial responses, they are quite okay. We need to support that individual. So the support comes in. It is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, another legend, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our ummah with leaders like them. And that he came in and he said, if anybody worship Muhammad, he is dead. But anybody worship the creator of us, Muhammad, he is still alive. So that's amazing, isn't it? And then he came up with this surah as well. Muhammad is nothing but he's a messenger, and every messenger died before him. So as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, we felt as if we are hearing this verse for the first time, although everybody knows it. So what that says, they were in a shock. And brother said that when you are in shock, you froze. The human brain's work with trauma comes in. We know only 3 F's. F. These are good F's though. F is where we basically fright, or we basically fight, or we freeze. Okay? So
I would like to add, flight is where we sometimes tend to run away from it.
So you flight, you fight, or you freeze. So these 3 are the things which happens usually. So that's what happened. Some of them froze and they didn't realize that it is. So these are quite common things what goes through it. So when this happens, we need to get some medical help. And that's what the medical help, what are the medical helps available at the moment? These are something called talking helps. It's in Newcastle. It's part of the IAPT. So basically approaching psychological therapies, that's what it is. So how do you approach it? You basically have to self-refer it. It's as easy as it is. You don't have to go to GP. You don't have to wait for the GP to make the referral, and that takes few days to weeks. So it's all quite easy now. NHS has spent a huge amount of money in this, which is called as IAPT. So you basically have to call them. If you even put IAPT, what you see, or talking help, then it just goes into this website, and we can put it our postcode, and the postcode gives which is the nearest hot talking help which is required. So self-referral is possible. And who is this service for? They have given a list of things: low mood, depression, anxiety, stress, panic, anger. So our trauma, which we're talking about today, any loss, bereavement is all part of the trauma, relationship difficulties, family problems. So the list goes on. So please make use of these kind of services which are available. These are basically free of cost, and you see the phone number there, and there is email as well. So how do I make an appointment? You can self-refer yourself, you can email, you can call them, or there is an online form there as well. So what happens next? They usually call in 3 to 5 days, and they do a phone-to-phone assessment. But if you make a request, we would like to have a face-to-face assessment. They do that as well. And I strongly advise anyone to have an assessment, do face-to-face. Emotional response are not there. The non-verbal assessment, what is going through, is not there. Because the person who is listening to you is over the phone. So he's just assessing your words. He's not assessing your facial response and shoulder shrugging and things like that. Any communication to be successful, it is the non-verbal communication which helps, rather than the verbal communication itself. And then I just want to just want to show this as well. How many people know about MEND? Can we have a show of hands? Yeah, four people. So this is an amazing organization. Thank you for showing us. This is Muslim Engagement and Development. There's a group of people who have come up with this organization. They do wonderful jobs. Some of them you can see it there. They worked onto it. So please go into this. If something happens, God forbid, some Islamophobic attacks and things like that. So this is the website to go and to lodge a complaint. So I thought maybe we just add this as well. Because trauma is not in relation to physical trauma. It could be emotional. As simple as somebody saying, just staring at us, intimidating and saying, go back to your country. That's trauma on its own. Yeah, and unfortunately that's happening more and more. So this is one of them could be useful. And they've come up with this beautiful response unit. So you can actually lodge a report online. You don't have to do much about it. Of course, after making a report to the police, this could be done as well. Because they help legally as well as socially and psychologically. So that's pretty much the case. And I think we can conclude the talk. But whoever has questions, please feel free to ask. So we can kick off.
So I've just got one more thing to say, and there is a very useful information leaflet that I've put in the reference, which is part of the Northumberland Tyne and Wear NHS Trust, which is where Brother Umar works. And if you actually Google Northumberland Tyne and Wear self-help, it brings a page which has a lot of leaflets. Now that is also available on a mobile phone as an app, and you can actually download it on your Android or on your Apple store, and it gives you various information leaflets that you can download as a PDF or read, or you can listen to it as well. So there is a leaflet about post-traumatic stress that is very, very good, and I would definitely recommend if anyone has been affected to read that. So you can either if you put it in Google, Northumberland Tyne and Wear, the auto prompt will come up as NHS Foundation Trust self-help. If you click on that, it will bring up the whole thing. It is something that I very strongly recommend, and I've recommended to the patients who come and see me, especially in the police and all the emergency services as well. It is very, very useful. And you can, if you want, I can show it to you on my mobile phone as well, how to download it. Any questions?
So, what's the best way to deal with flashbacks and panic attacks from a doctor point of view?
I think GPs would be able to best answer that, but what happens is if you're starting to get flashbacks, then you can try and change your thought process in how to deal with it, and it's called anxiety management. And the post-traumatic stress leaflet gives you information about that, so you use breathing techniques and you calm down. Making dua is also one very good way, but you can use what's known as mindfulness, and it's about calming yourself down, closing your eyes, and trying to think about something positive and just breathing slowly. Now, GPs can sometimes give you medication to try and slow down the anxiety and stop the beating of the heart. And the flashbacks can usually, most people, 99% of the people, it tends to go away. By doing things that are normal and are part of your daily routine, you tend to forget about it. So you're distracted from those flashbacks. If you're not doing anything, you keep thinking about it. But if you try and normalize your life by doing things that you normally do, like going to work or taking your children to school and teaching them, or whatever you're doing, if you try and do what you normally do, your mind doesn't think about it. As Brother Umar said, our mind is by default, we think about the wrong things. By focusing your mind on doing the right things, you tend to forget about the wrong things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If someone to seek support from you, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
With me? I have an email address, and if I want, I can give you my email address, or through the mosque, Brother Samir, Brother Umar. You can contact them through me as well, but I can give you my email address. That's not a problem. In terms of asking for medical help for treatment, you must always go through your GP, because that's where the train or the chain of treatment and having a medical record always helps, because then your GP will be able to refer you. They will have the referral information with them, and then the psychological team will then contact your GP if you need more intense treatment, like what's known as cognitive behavioral therapy, which is different from counseling. The counseling looks at the why is it happened. The cognitive behavioral therapy looks at how you can change your mind, the thinking of your mind. And I think in a way making dua and praying is a form of cognitive behavioral therapy on its own.
Yeah, basically we as Muslim brothers here, we can support you when you meet in the mosque and things like that. But if you need any professional help, it is the best way to approach your GPs and take the available pathways. And that's the best approach. Is that okay? Any further questions? No? Do you have any questions?
No.
Sisters, do you have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted the mosque to know that I'm the one that was involved at the accident, for everyone to know, and I think everyone to forgive me for what had happened, and I'm so sorry, for what happened that day. I feel so downhearted, and I want everybody to help me to pray that was in the hospital.
Thank you, Sister Jazakallah Khair, for coming in today. That's very brave of you, very kind of you to come and listen to the talk. I hope this was helpful to you, and we all pray and we understand it is equally difficult what you and your family going through, and the Jamaat is aware of that, and they are making du'as for you and for all. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I would agree with Brother Umar. I think the most affected person is likely to have been you, because you were directly involved with it. And I'm hoping that what I've explained today makes sense to you as well, and helps you understand the emotions that you have been going through as well, and so giving you advice on what you need to do to try and help get better. Sabr and time is very important in these situations, and I can only hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the strength and the resilience and the patience to recover from what has happened.
No more questions? Are you? Yeah?
Where should we go if our family members have severe depression? Should we go just make an appointment to GP or emergency or something like that?
No, I think you should see a GP. Yeah.
Yes.
We actually have a GP here in our midst, and I can invite Brother Fawaz Rahman to come and give you some idea about what the GP would do in these situations, and advising on what would be useful from a general practitioner perspective. Brother Fawaz, please.
You brother, you said, you asked about, when you're depressed, what do you do? So we do, as young practitioners, we do get a lot of patients who come to us, asking what to do when we're depressed, how to move forward. And what Brother Arif was saying, a lot of times it is recognizing you're depressed, and when others recognize that you're depressed, how do you move forward? And when they come to us, we kind of direct them to the right services. We have counselors, we have medications that we can give, and we do regular reviews of patients. So that has helped as well.
I would like to thank Imam Abdul Basit and the Newcastle Central Mosque once again for giving me the opportunity to speak today, and I hope you found the talk useful. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.